Sagiri father, Yamada Azuman Kichiji, a skilled swordsman expert, is to behead a criminal who had asked for his execution to be done while performing his last routine as a comedian. The Azuman fulfills the request, delivering the fatal blow just as the comedian delivers his final punchline, showcasing his precision and mastery of the sword. Another member of the Azuman clan, Yamada Aizen, observes the scene and notes that the criminal didn't even realize he had been decapitated, a testament to Azuman's flawless technique that minimizes unnecessary pain and suffering. Sagiri, Azuman's daughter, watches her father with admiration and aspires to be as skilled as him. As she grows older, her swordsmanship improves in the eyes of others. However, Aizen notices that Sagiri's strikes are burdened with fear, and he warns her that if she continues like this, the criminals she executes will suffer needlessly. Sagiri carries out the execution of another criminal, but Aizen observes that she has not yet overcome her fear. He advises her to look at her blade, and as she does, she realizes that the decapitated criminal's face bears a pained expression. She comes to the realization that her fear is weighing down her blade, causing the criminals she executes to suffer more, which in turn makes her hesitate even more. It's a vicious cycle that she must break. Sagiri wonders how she can rid her heart of fear and hesitation, just like her father. She considers the possibility of finding someone so evil that she could kill without hesitation, as a way to desensitize herself to the fear. As the scene shifts back to the present, Sagiri tightens the cloth around Gabimaru's eyes. He sits among a gathering of criminals brought together by various Azuman, much like herself. The shogun's assistant welcomes them with a sense of trepidation, unsure if it was wise to bring so many dangerous individuals to the same place, despite it being the will of the court. Sagiri observes the motley crew of criminals, each notorious for their heinous acts: a robber with a body count of 30, a serial arsonist, a killer constable, and many more who have caused widespread terror. And among them is Gabimaru. He lets out a weary sigh and expresses his desire to see the shogun, but Sagiri refuses. The presenter then announces a secret mission that could potentially grant them a pardon, capturing the attention of every criminal in the room. One of the criminals, a depraved monster who derives pleasure from killing women and children, starts cackling at the thought of the people he could harm once he regains his freedom. Sagiri wonders if she would hesitate to execute such an evil being. Gabimaru, clearly bored, lets out a loud yawn. Akunoichi beside him recognizes him as Gabimaru the Empty based on his appearance and calls him a celebrity in the world of criminals. However, she then berates him, calling him short and a disappointment for ending up in the same predicament as the rest of them. Gabimaru apologizes to the lady, his tone hinting at his nonchalancy. Sagiri watches with curiosity, pondering if Gabimaru is truly the same as the other criminals gathered there, or if the rumors about him being even worse are true. The official continued, describing the island in vivid detail, but before he could finish, the criminals interrupted, mocking it as a baby fairy tale. An official sternly ordered them to remove their masks, and as they did, their faces turned a sickly shade of gray. To their surprise, they saw a smiling man with flowers growing out of his body. He was the only official who had returned from the island alive, but he was no longer human. His body was swollen, covered in welts that had turned into flowers overnight. The fate of the other 60 surveyors remained unknown, and the man-plant was now unable to speak, rendering their only source of information useless. One of the criminals yelled that they had no idea the island was so messed up, but the presenter brushed it off, saying it didn't matter. He passionately told them that becoming a bouquet of flowers wasn't so bad. In fact, it was beautiful compared to the ugly deeds they had done and deserved. Another criminal tried to yell at him, but he silenced them. He went on to explain that they were all going to die anyway, but now they had the chance to walk on pure lands and should be grateful for the shogun's kindness. A particularly stylish criminal, dripping with attitude, asked what would happen if they didn't find any elixir on the island. The rest of the criminals joined in, shouting if they were allowed to come back empty-handed. The official calmly responded that participation was voluntary, implying that they had a choice in the matter. A rough-looking Yakuza criminal stood up, claiming it would be better to die in prison with his comrades. He took a few steps towards the exit, but before he could go any further, an Azuman appeared and swiftly beheaded him. The other criminals were shocked as the official explained that they would be assigned escorts on the island, who would behead them if they acted on their own. Sagiri, one of the Azuman, placed her blade on Gabimaru's neck, while the other Asimans did the same with their designated criminals. The Asimans would act as supervisors, and the criminals would enter the island with their manacles still on. If their escorts were intentionally or accidentally killed, they would be executed. Gabimaru questioned this, and Sagiri confirmed it. He closed his eyes, seemingly unfazed, leaving Sagiri to wonder if he had nerves of steel or if he was just dense. The shogun called for his assistant and whispered something to him. The assistant then stood before the criminals and announced one more thing. He told them that they needed to reduce their numbers, as there were limited boats and Asimans available. The criminals were confused, but one of them, looking deranged-like, choked another criminal to death and bashed another's face in with a rock. The Asaman didn't react, and the criminal claimed that the officials wanted them to kill each other. Though this was not what the assistant had meant, the official nonchalantly told them to go ahead, as someone useless wouldn't be able to survive this ordeal. Also, they shouldn't remove their shackles. The criminals engage in a brutal melee, with the shogun delighting in the carnage. His assistant worries about the limitations of their shackles hindering the prisoner's ability to fight effectively, resulting in unnecessary injuries. However, the assistant dares not voice his concerns to the shogun, fearing repercussions. The shogun asks who the Red Seals are. The criminals who bear the infamous Red Seal are those who possess exceptional and almost abnormal skills. Among them is a scar-faced one-eyed youth who once commanded a fearsome group of bandits and established a thieving city in the mountains. There's also a cunning kunoichi who led a successful rebellion and neutralized all retainers in a castle. A renowned fencing master known as the Dragon of the Sword, and a literal giant who is impervious to swords and spears. And finally, the living legend known as Gabimaru the Empty, who remains motionless amid the chaos. Aizen approaches Sagiri and questions if the gruesome scene is too much for her. He warns her that the violence on the island will be even worse, and she will have to strike down these criminals as they pose a danger to her as well. He then suggests that as a woman, she should be living a peaceful life away from all this. Sagiri retorts, telling him she would quit if she had the choice. As a child, Sagiri had always been surrounded by death. The Yamada clan she was born into used dead bodies to test new swords and make pills, and even though she didn't wield a sword herself, she couldn't escape the fact that she was sustained by the corpses of others. She was bullied for this, called names like man-eater and murderer. When she tried to look away, she saw the harsh reality reflected back at her in the sword. As some of the criminals contemplate killing the samurai and escaping to the sea, they specifically target Sagiri, assuming her to be weak because she is a woman. Aizen steps in to intervene, but Sagiri holds him back. Aizen asks if she is capable of cutting them down. Sagiri realizes that she cannot run away from the karma that comes with being a beheader, and she does not want to avoid or deny it. She is willing to confront the karma she carries. As Sagiri looks at the faces of the criminals, she feels a heavy weight pulling at her, but she beheads them nonetheless. She lets out a heavy sigh, indicating that the act has taken a toll on her. She knows that killing people is not something she can be fine with. In the midst of this, Sagiri senses Gabimaru's movement and turns towards him. As Gabimaru approaches the shogun, the officials panics. Gabimaru questions why they couldn't come up with a better way to make the selection, as not every murderer kills because they enjoy it. Gabimaru tells them he can't ignore the situation. One of the officials dismisses him as unworthy for speaking to the shogun, but Gabimaru insists that he wants to avoid killing if possible. The shogun's assistant then suggests to Gabimaru to give up on the pardon if that's what he wants, and proceeds to tell a group of criminals to attack Gabimaru in order to earn a chance to go on the expedition. The criminals accept the offer and attack Gabimaru, but he dodges their attacks and tries to reason with them. However, they refuse to listen, and Gabimaru realizes they leave him with no other choice but to defend himself. He tells them repeatedly that he doesn't want to kill them, as he knows the burden it will place on him. Sagiri watches the scene unfold. In a sudden burst of action, Gabimaru swiftly dispatches his attackers, using his bare hands to rip out one attacker's throat, kicking another and breaking their neck, and biting another's throat. In a matter of moments, the bodies of his opponents lie bloodied on the ground, leaving Gabimaru standing amidst the aftermath. The official looks at Gabimaru in dread, calling him inhuman for his ruthless killing. Sagiri, who has been watching the battle unfold, recalls Gabimaru's earlier words about not wanting to shoulder the burdens of taking lives. She visualizes him, covered in blood, surrounded by dead bodies. Aizen, another observer, criticizes Gabimaru for his vicious methods of killing. With blood dripping down his face, Gabimaru retorts, stating that killing them in a nicer way wouldn't make him any less hated. Sagiri, moved by Gabimaru's resolve, realizes that perhaps what she needed wasn't the strength to be fearless, but the determination to bear the weight of the lives she takes. A tear falls from her eyes as she holds her blade firmer, and Aizen acknowledges that he understands the burden is heavy. Sagiri objects to Aizen's comment, and with renewed resolve, she declares that she will be the one to cut Gabimaru down. Later, the shogun's assistant intervenes and stops the battle. He declares the 10 criminals who are left standing on the pile of dead bodies as the members of the expedition party. He calls out their names: the Brigand King, Asachobi, the Dragon of the Sword, Tamaya Gentetsusa, the Hyapon Hunter, the Quarreler, Nurugai the Sanka Mountain Nomad, he who prays to Buddha for murder, Horubu, the former shinobi assassin, Gabimaru the Empty, the Cannibal Courtesan, Akaginu, the Kunoichi Ninja Woman, Sishu no Yuzuriya, the missionary who renounced his faith, Moro Masaya, the Giant of Bizan, Rokuroda. He also mentions that one disciple from the Yamada clan of beheaders from Aziaman will be by their side. The shogun's assistant explains that they will now board the ship and sail to the Mystery Island in pursuit of the Elixir of Life and the secret of immortality. They are now free men and women with nothing to fear. Their destination is described as Paradise Nirvana, the enchanted realm, the land everlasting, a place without peril. And with that, we conclude this episode.